Hi, my name is Maria and thank you for joining me here in the Bead Club Lounge. Now today I'm going to walk you through how to make a flat even count peyote stitch bracelet. Now it's a mouthful, but I promise you this is a really simple design that's perfect for beginners. I purposely kept it simple so that if you've never tried peyote stitch before, or if you have tried it and you've had some issues getting started, then hopefully this tutorial will help. Now you can find the full written pattern over on my blog, so make sure you click the link in the description box down below so that you can access that full written pattern. Here are the materials that you're going to need for today's pattern. You're going to need some size 11 seed beads. I'm using these, I think these are Miyuki seed beads, or maybe they're Shaq seed beads, I don't even know. Anyway, I'm just using some regular size 11 seed beads. And then you're going to need 2 colors of size 8 Zelica beads. You're going to need a clasp, and you're going to need a size 10 needle with a length of beading thread. Now I'm also using a random bead as my stop bead, and that's to prevent my beads from falling off the thread when I get started. So let's dive in. To attach your stop bead, I'm just going to pick it up with my needle and I'm going to slide it down my thread, and then from the tail end I'm going to pass back through that same bead, and it's going to form a little loop around the bead and hold the bead in place. Now this bead will serve to stop any of my other beads from falling off the end of my thread when I first add them. And you can leave about a 10-inch tail so you can attach your clasp at the end. Now to begin, I'm going to pick up this sequence of beads here. So I have 2 of my red, 2 of my purple, 2 of my red, 2 of my purple, and then 2 more red. So you're going to have a total of 6 red and 4 purple in between. Now I'm going to let those slide down my thread. And to continue, I'm going to pick up 1 of my red. So whatever color is on the end here, that's the color that you're gonna continue with. And I'm going to skip this last bead that I picked up, and I'm going to pass through the very next one. And I'm just going to hold on to that and pull my thread through. And what that does is it causes these 2 beads at the end to stack one on top of the other. So this one on the right hand side is the one I just added, and this is the last bead that I would have picked up in this sequence of beads here. So it causes them to stack one on top of each other, and that's just what you want there. And then I'm going to continue by picking up 1 purple bead. I'm going to skip that next purple bead, and I'm going to pass through the one following that. So just like that, and when I pull my thread through, it's going to stack that bead on top of the one that's already there. Now you do want to make sure that your beadwork doesn't twist around on you. You can see how that's starting to twist there. I just like to keep my hand on it as I work and make sure that my beadwork doesn't get all twisted around. So whatever color you're about to stitch into is the color that you're going to pick up here. So I'm going to pick up another red because I'm going to stitch into another red. So I'm going to skip that following bead, and I'm going to pass through the very next red bead. And I'm just going to pull my thread through, and again it's going to stack that bead right on top. And now I'm going to pick up a purple because I'm going to stitch into a purple. So I'm going to skip that next purple bead, and I'm going to pass through the one that's following. And then I'm going to pick up a red because right at the end is where I'm going to sew into my red. So I'm going to skip that next red bead, and I'm going to pass through the one on the end. Now you do want to make sure that you don't sew through your stop bead. That isn't part of your work at all. It's just there to prevent your beads from falling off at the beginning of the project. So you're going to pull your thread through, and when you do, you're going to have something that looks just like this. Let me put it down. So you can see this bead is still trying to twist around on the end. Just going to wrangle it back in place as I work. And eventually, when you do the next row, you're going to get that to sit in place where it's supposed to. So don't worry about that too much right now. Okay, so we're going to continue now with row 4. So as I said, you're picking up whatever color you're sewing into. So I'm going to be sewing into this red bead here, and that's what I'm going to pick up. I'm going to pick up a red bead. So we're just going to reverse direction now, and we're going to come back down our row. And it's a much easier now because all you need to do is pass through those beads that are sticking up along the ends here. So now I'm going to go into a purple. I'm going to pick up a purple, and I'm going to pass through that purple bead that's sticking up along the end. I'm going into a red, so I'm going to pick up a red, and I'm going to sew through that red bead that's sticking up. I'm going into a purple, so I'm going to pick up a purple, and I'm going to pass through that purple bead that's sticking out. And then finally, I'm going into a red, so I'm going to pick up a red, and I'm going to pass through that last red bead along the end of my beadwork here. Now this is the one that kept twisting around all the time, and you can see when I add that last bead, it's sitting in place just how it should be. It's no longer twisting. So as you add more rows, your beadwork is going to sit flat, and it's going to stay how it's supposed to. So you just keep working just like that. You reverse direction and you pick up whatever color you're about to sew into. So you're going to pick up a red, you're going to sew into this red, you're going to pick up a purple, you're going to sew into that purple, and you just keep skipping a bead and passing through the next bead. Skip a bead, pass through the next bead. Skip a bead, pass through the next bead. That's your mantra for this entire project. So continue working like that until you have your desired length, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to add the clasp at the end. Okay, so you can see here that I've done quite a bit of beadwork, and you can see these beautiful bands forming our design here. So it's a lovely striped bracelet that we're making. So I'm just going to add my very last bead here, and I'm coming out of this purple bead, so I'm going to pick up a red, and I'm going to sew through that last red bead. So now we need to add the clasp to the end of our bracelet here. Now I'm just going to be using a regular toggle clasp. You can use pretty much any clasp you like, lobster clasp, whatever you prefer. But before we add this clasp, I want to get to the middle 2 columns of our beadwork here. And because I'm using this single clasp here, I want to attach it to the middle of my beadwork. So I am going to work my way through the beads until I'm coming out of that middle, those 2 middle beads there. So I'm coming out of this last bead here along the top, and I'm going to go backwards 1 row, and I'm going to pass through those 2 beads on a diagonal. Okay, so I'm just going to pull my thread through there. So I was coming out of this bead here, and I just went back 1, and then I passed through at a diagonal the 2 prior to this row here. I'm going to go through the 2 just before that. Okay, so you have the 2 beads here, and then I'm going to go through the 2 just before those. And I'm going to pull that through, and then I'm right in position to pass through the last 2 beads at the edge of my bracelet in the middle rows, and that's where I want to be so I can add my clasp. So in order to add my clasp, I'm just going to pick up 5 size 11 seed beads and half of my clasp, and I'm going to slide that down my thread, And then I'm going to pass my needle back through that very last size 11 seed bead that I picked up. And I'm just going to hold onto my clasp and pull my thread tight. And then I'm going to pick up 4 more of my size 11 seed beads, and I'm going to take my needle through the size 8 delicas from the side opposite where my thread is exiting. So you can see here that my thread is, my clasp is already attached on the bottom end of my beadwork of those 2 columns or 2 rows, depending on how you look at it. And then I'm taking my needle through the opposite side. And then I'm just going to pull that through. And that's going to create this little V shape on the end there. And that's just what I want. And then I'm going to reinforce that clasp by passing through the first 5 seed beads on one side and my clasp. And then I'm going to pass back down through the middle seed bead. And then down the 4 seed beads on the other side. And then back down through those 2 delicas along the edge in the middle of my beadwork. And once you've done that, you can reinforce the clasp as many times as you want. But once you've done that, you're finished. You just tie your thread off and you're all done. So I'm just gonna tie a half hitch knot along here. So I'm gonna take my needle under the thread bridge between this red and this purple bead. And I'm gonna pull that through and leave a little loop on the side. I'm going to take my needle through there and just pull it gently. Make sure that the knot goes where I want it, and just tie as many knots as you want, and then you can cut off your thread and remove the excess. Now, of course, you will need to remove the stop bead and repeat the same steps that you took to add the clasp on this side. The steps are the exact same, just, you know, you'll be coming out of the red seed bead on one end. You're gonna go backwards and take your needles through the beadwork until you're coming out of the center beads, add your clasp, reinforce it, and tie the thread off. Thank you so much for joining me here today and watching this tutorial. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure that you click the link in the description box down below so you can go and access the full written pattern for this project. Until next time, bye-bye.